All right, hello and welcome to another installment of the Andy Warhol Diary and the old Razzle Dazzle. This is your pal Mubbo here today. And today we're going to be looking at December 10th, 1976. Now, if you look at the diary for the entry for today, it's two very small paragraphs. So my initial thought was to combine December 10th and December 12th. But as I started doing this, I just got more and more and more involved in this. So I decided just to go with December 10th. Let's do a really good deep dive into what Andy is talking about. Also, I changed my microphone settings a little bit. I usually wear this, I don't know if you can see it, it's like a little fuzzy hat thing that I wear over the microphone to cut down on some of the popping. But I haven't really been happy with how the microphone's been sounding. I have a brand new microphone, so my only thought is maybe it's the room itself. And this is the office where I work my day job in, so I'm not going to start putting up like eggshell crates and foam stuff on the walls. I'm not going to do it. So I took the little hat thing off, and I want to see if it makes any difference. So we're looking at December 10th, 1976. And of course, before we get started, as always, I'd like to put out a PFA, that is a plea for assistance for information leading up to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for the murder of my uncle, Charles Pancheri. He was killed in his home on Tuesday, October 4th, 2011. He was found dead on his kitchen floor. There was a ladder in the backyard leading up to a first floor bedroom window. My uncle was in his 70s. There's no need for him to have a ladder outside his window. So somebody obviously looked at that as an easy way to gain access to the house. If you have any information, anything suspicious, anything weird, anybody that you know that, they never had money and all of a sudden they have money around this time and they're kind of evasive about where they found, how they got the money because they don't really have a steady stream of income, call it into the police. You never know what kind of information they might find helpful. This is currently a cold case, but when I spoke to the detective, they said they would reopen it if some new information would come forward. So if you could call 908-654-TIPS, that's 908-654-TIPS 8477, or go to their website. It's www.uctip.org. That's www.uctip, so it's Union County tip.org. There's a $5,000 reward for information. If you have anything, I would really appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening. Also, if you are interested, you can go and read the digital version of the Andy Warhol Diary if you'd like to read along before you watch the video or after, to get like a better idea of what his writing style was actually like, because it's not always linear all the time. And that's one of the things that I've been seeing as a challenge, is that he tends to change gears in the middle of explaining something and then he'll go back to it later. So if you'd like to see exactly what he's writing, you can go to that link at the top. And also there's an arrow and it says full text, and you can find the full text of the diary. And today we're looking at December 10th, 1976. So let's get this started. Also, one more thing. I actually found this on Facebook today. From the Andy Warhol Museum. It's a 24-hour webcam that looks at Andy's gravesite and the gravesite of his mother and father. And it's you could just go on there anytime. I took this picture today, and it's actually snowing at his gravesite. But you see some people left Campbell soups, and looks like there's some artwork there. So I think it'd be interesting once the warm weather comes to see who's visiting Andy. I think that's kind of interesting. So we're going to start off with Andy talks about Sam Bronfman's kidnappers were found innocent. Now, he's talking about Sam Bronfman II, heir to the Bronfman Family Trust, which at the time was worth about $750 million. Bronfman founded a company called Distillers Corporation Limited, and they purchased Seagram's company, and that became the world's largest liquor distilling firm. Now, if anybody has any experience with these liquors, good or bad, you know that Seagram's is very prominent even today. They're a very prominent distillery. You can find them pretty much in every store that sells alcohol. As far as the kidnapping goes, Sam II, who is pictured right here, had dinner at his father's home. His father was Edgar Bronfman on August 8th, 1975, right here in Yorktown Heights in Westchester County, and that's kind of near the Connecticut border. So here's Connecticut right here, is Stamford, Connecticut, just to give you an idea of where this is. He left his father's house about 11:30 p.m. Around 2 a.m., Sam called his father's house to say that he'd been kidnapped. A ransom note was sent in and claimed that Sam was being buried alive with a 10-day supply of oxygen. Also, something interesting here is this family, aside from Sam being kind of a strange bird, Sam's sister, Claire Bronfman, and you could do this reading on your own, was a convicted felon and former leader of a sex cult. And the link for the entire article is right here. There's some very interesting things about Sam and his sister. But I wanted to dive into that, but I have to keep to the diary because we're going to get way off track here. So the name of the series is The Andy Warhol Diary, not Sam Bronfman's Weirdo Family. So if you want to do some reading, the article is right here. You can go check that out. A ransom note was sent and claimed that Sam was being buried alive with a 10-day supply of oxygen. If the ransom wasn't paid, the abductors would kill Sam's father, Edgar, with cyanide bullets. The ransom demanded $4.6 million, which at the time was the highest demanded in a U.S. kidnapping. Now, portions of the ransom note were found to be identical to a note used in the 1968 kidnapping of this lady right here, Barbara Jane Mackle. Now, I just want you to put Sam on the back burner for a minute. We're going to talk about Barbara Jane really quick because these two kidnappings are kind of related as far as the ransom note goes. The kidnappers for Sam actually used excerpts that were released of the Barbara Jane Mackle kidnapping and used them for Sam's kidnapping. Now, Barbara Jane Mackle was kidnapped by a prison escapee, Gary Stephen Krist, and an accomplice, Ruth Eisemann Schier, these two people right here. Barbara was lured outside when Krist told her there was a traffic accident. Barbara opened the door, fearing it might have been her friend in the accident, who was expected home. She was then overpowered and forced into the car at gunpoint. And what's really funny is that this actually happened to my great-grandmother, the same exact thing. She was in her 80s, and two people came up to her door. And by the way, this happened about 3 blocks away from where my uncle was murdered. It's not a fantastic area. And a woman came to the door and told my grandmother that she was in a traffic accident. Could she come in and use the phone? And of course, my great-grandmother, being a very nice lady, opened the door and let her in. And then she was overpowered by another person that came out of nowhere. He was hiding on the porch, and they tied her up and made her sit down, and they took some money, and then thankfully they just left, and that's the only thing that happened. But yeah, if somebody's at your door, just don't open the door. You don't owe them anything. So after Barbara was forced into the car at gunpoint, Barbara was then buried alive in a shallow trench inside a fiberglass reinforced box. The box had an air pump, water laced with sedatives, a battery-operated lamp, and some food. They demanded $500,000. A ransom was attempted, but these dumb kidnappers fled on foot when 2 policemen drove by. And guess what they did? They left their car behind. So they ran off and policemen got the car. It still had the right license plate on it. Inside the car, the police found documents, one of them being from a man named George Deacon. Deacon was a friend of Ruth Eisemann, right, with this lady right here. George Deacon was a friend of Ruth, and they found out that Deacon built ventilated boxes for a living. So I guess you can guess what happened after that, after they got the car and the license plate. Hilarity ensued, and these two losers were apprehended, and Barbara Mackle was rescued after 3.5 days. Now, if you want more information on this case, I put a link to a document by one of the FBI investigators. And actually, if you want to read the actual ransom note, I was going to post it in this video, but it's very long. The ransom note was put up by web sleuths onto a message board, and it's pretty lengthy. So if you want to read it for yourself, it's just your ordinary kidnapper nonsense, that they always write, and, they try to sound threatening and important, but that's there for you if you want to read it. I also put a link to a very good document by one of the investigators, one of the FBI investigators in this case. It's very detailed with some really good photos. Like this is the apparatus. It's a very poor copy. It's actually a black and white photocopy of an actual file that was used in the investigation. And this is the actual capsule that she was kept in with the hoses. And here's another photo of it. And these are some of the things that were found inside of the capsule with her. So there's some food and some other miscellaneous things. It's a really good article. It's like a police file, kind of. It's very good if you like true crime. Okay, so now we need to get back to Sam. So we're done with Barbara. She was rescued, and she was, fine after that. So just to recap, Sam was kidnapped, and if the ransom wasn't paid, the kidnappers threatened to shoot Sam's father, Edgar, with cyanide bullets. The kidnappers specified that over one-half of the $4.6 million ransom was to be paid in $10 bills. And if they followed those instructions, if they actually did this, that ransom would weigh close to 1,000 pounds. So that it wasn't very well thought out. This case played out very publicly, with helicopters circling the Bronfman property, as well as photographers and nosy people camped outside the estate gates. Now, who does that sound like? We have Nancy Guthrie going on right now. We have all those photographers, all the well-wishers, all standing outside, hindering the investigation, trampling through all the underbrush and things like that. I think what could help her could actually end up hurting her, just regular foot traffic. I mean, it's the exact same thing that the Ramseys did. If you remember that case, JonBenet Ramsey. As soon as JonBenet was kidnapped, quote unquote, the Ramseys then phoned everyone they knew, from their pastor to the neighbors to friends, telling them all to come on over and help look for JonBenet. And they all came in the house, walking all over the house, unattended. There was only one officer in that entire house when all these people were in the house, and they could not spend their time policing where everybody was. And everyone just had free reign of the house. Now, I know they want to help Nancy, but I think that they should just let the investigators investigate, and they shouldn't have all those people over there. That's just my opinion. So Edgar Bronfman spent several days going to phone booths in and around JFK Airport, following instructions from the kidnappers. So here's JFK back in the 1970s, and here's an interior shot. That's just for a reference. Now, on August 16th, Edgar met one of the abductors in Woodside, Queens, with a $2.3 million ransom. The FBI was on hand to watch the handoff, but no arrests were made. And here's Woodside, just for point of reference. It's near LaGuardia. The FBI did get the license plate of the car, and it was registered to a man named Mel Patrick Lynch from Ireland, who worked as a firefighter, and that's him right there. The next day, the FBI raided Lynch's Flatbush, Brooklyn apartment and found Sam in there. He was bound, blindfolded, and gagged at this address at 628 East 17th Street. Lynch's accomplice was a fellow Irish immigrant named Dominic Byrne who lived nearby. Lynch and Byrne were arrested and charged with kidnapping and extortion. They were able to provide the location of the ransom money. The pair said they planned the kidnapping for years, driving around the neighborhood where Sam's mother lived. They told multiple versions of their stories. One of the stories was that Byrne ran a limo service and had been hired to drive to Westchester County, and Lynch was just along for the ride. The men who hired the limo then forced Byrne and Lynch to abduct Sam. Now, Lynch's defense attorney came up with the defense that Sam was the mastermind behind the kidnapping. So he arranged his own kidnapping, and it was a hoax to extort money from his father. Lynch claimed that Sam and he were in a relationship, and the only reason Lynch went along with the plan was that Sam said he would tell the fire department that Lynch was gay, and this would most likely have affected his job. Let me just put this out there. Gay firemen, you are welcome to come and rescue me. You can come into my house, rescue me, rescue all my valuables, my animals. I don't care if you're gay. That makes no difference to me. Come and rescue me. After the trial, in which Lynch was described as a mesmerizing storyteller, and he had the FBI and the New York Police Department officers contradicting themselves, both Lynch and Byrne were convicted of extortion. This was in 1976. So this might be what Andy was actually reading, the story. So they were convicted of extortion, but they were found not guilty in kidnapping. Two of the jurors said they believed that Sam II may have staged his own kidnapping. So Byrne was sentenced to 3 to 9 years, and Lynch received 4 to 12 years. Byrne was paroled after, let me just go back to the other slide. Byrne was paroled after 38 months, while Lynch served 6 years. Now, Byrne's defense attorney, this guy right here, Peter DeBlasio, published a memoir in 2020 that stated Sam was not involved in his own kidnapping, and the defense knew that the kidnappers were lying. After the kidnapping, Sam married Melanie Mann, who's right here, a fellow attorney. And after Melanie's death in 1991 from breast cancer, Sam married Kelly Johnston. And they currently run nonprofits, as you do when you're swimming in money. And that's going to be it for these kidnappings. I'm sure you know all you wanted to know and more about these kidnappings. So meanwhile, back in the diary, Andy mentions that Brigid Berlin, aka Brigid Polk, came to the factory for the first time after starting her diet the previous August. Andy stated Brigid said she was down to 190 pounds. Her starting weight was around 260. Andy said she looked really good and everybody made a fuss over her. Andy took some photos. Brigid had a lifelong struggle with weight. At her heaviest, she was over 300 pounds, and it's well known that Honey Berlin, Brigid's mom, would try to control Brigid's weight with drugs, amphetamines, which is probably what kicked off Brigid's long-term drug use. And this is a really very short video, but it's a very good video of Brigid discussing amphetamines, and she's actually in the act right here in a bathroom stall of giving herself a poke, as she would. And Brigid famously quipped, "It's easier to eat nothing than eat something." And that is absolutely true. Like, you have to eat to survive, right? Like, it's not like smoking where you don't have to smoke. You don't have to use drugs. You don't have to drink alcohol, but you have to eat. You have to find that balance. And it's incredibly difficult, especially if you love food, to have to monitor that. And there's all this, stress and, worry, do you look a certain way? And it's no different than it was back then. I think it's even worse now. Andy also mentioned that Barbara Allen, the socialite, journalist, and model, we talked about her many times, found herself a new apartment on 77th off Fifth Avenue. So I couldn't find the exact apartment building, but this is Fifth Avenue right here. it runs down, and then 77th is here. So it's going to be like somewhere in this area. And if you know this area at all, this is next to Central Park, and she's close to the Alice in Wonderland statue, which here's an enlarged version for you to look at. So if you're in that area, maybe take a walk up there and see if there's any interesting apartment buildings. And that's going to do it for this diary entry. It was 90% of it was about the kidnapping. So I hope you found that interesting. I know I certainly did. So let's take a look at today in history. On December 10th, 1976, the band Wings released their triple live album, Wings Over America, which was recorded during their North American tour. And I helpfully put all the track listings on there. I mean, you could find it yourself, but. So it's a 3-record album. It had 6 sides to it. And this was recorded during their very extensive North American tour. If you were lucky enough to see Paul McCartney, which I did twice, it's very, very well worth it if you have the opportunity. And also on this day, Samoa joins the United Nations. So here's Samoa on the map because a lot of people, including myself, didn't know where Samoa was. But I heard they have one hell of a law school. And that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you found this informative and entertaining, and I appreciate every view and every like. Thank you very much. And next time we'll be talking about December 12th, 1976. Thanks for watching. MUBBO.